going back to our learnings in our last business, what we found is the first thing you do is pretty successful. The second thing you do tends to be quite successful as well. But then by the time you start looking at the third, the fourth, the fifth, then the uptake rate and the effectiveness really start to kind of fall off a cliff. And that's not because there's not value in the offering. It's just the constraint of using people as a distribution channel. So this is where our whole services marketplace vision came about, was basically how do we digitize all of these for maximum effectiveness? And that not only helps to save the property manager time because they can just focus on their actual job and doing it well and not having to be a pseudo salesperson, but also it maximizes the uptake of those services, which basically means that you're maximizing the effectiveness of the revenue generation. So there's many, 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 many different ways that we see the opportunity to provide value for the customer base and be able to generate a small amount of money in return that, over really large volumes and share that back with agency customers is a key part of our strategic vision. And yeah, excited to be taking those steps now.
Welcome back to the Property Management Podcast. I'm Kylie Walker. Thank you so much for being here. In this episode, we're tackling two crucial topics that every property manager and business should know: how to diversify your income and cut property management costs. These are challenges that many of us face daily. The property management landscape is constantly changing with rising costs, industry competition, and the pressure to maintain profitability. Finding new income streams and efficient ways to manage expenses can make all the difference in staying ahead. And who better than to guide us through this than our esteemed guest today? I'm chatting with Brock Fisher from Kolmeo. Brock is a seasoned expert in the property management industry with over 2 decades of experience. He has a proven track record in helping businesses maximize their profitability and efficiency. At Kolmeo, Brock has been instrumental in developing innovative solutions that streamline property management business processes and enhance financial performance. His deep industry knowledge and practical insights have made him a sought-after speaker and consultant in this field. Kolmeo is all about innovation in property management, helping businesses diversify their income streams and unlock growth and revenue opportunities that were previously not thought of or just really difficult to manage with existing market solutions. They pride themselves on their industry-first achievements, including a business model flexibility that is unmatched currently in the marketplace. Add to that their hybrid direct digital and trust account payment model, an enterprise-grade customer gauge NPS survey system, and a workflow-first request-based operating system that eliminates the need for additional workflow tools like Trello and Monday. It's clear why Kolmeo is positioning itself as the logical property management alternative for forward-thinking businesses. And there's no question, Kolmeo is an innovative platform, but they also cater for businesses from startup to multinationals. And if you're thinking about starting up, take a listen to some of the cost-saving options Kolmeo offers in that space. From multiple office businesses with individual shareholding splits or running an asset share portfolio scenario with senior or executive property managers, to corporate level operational support for smaller individual businesses, or even property management as a service for other businesses. There's a solution for almost every business structure. So grab a pen and paper because you're about to get some invaluable insights that can transform the way that you manage your properties and grow your income streams. We'll explore practical strategies for diversifying your income, from adding new services to tapping into different markets, and discuss cost-cutting measures that can help you run a more efficient and profitable operation. Whether you're struggling with high overheads, looking for ways to increase your revenue, or just want to stay competitive, this episode is for you. Brock, welcome back to the Property Management Podcast. You are no stranger to the podcast. Thank you for joining me for another episode. And instead of telling our audience a little bit about yourself, because if they want to know more about you, they can go back and listen to the previous episode that we did, maybe share with us, update us a little bit on what's happening at Kolmeo and what we can look forward to, new features, new releases coming out. Let us know all the goss.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kylie. Always great to come and have a chat to you about property management stuff. Yeah, so 1,000 miles an hour at Kolmeo. I guess it tends to always be a bit that way in the tech space. But since we last spoke, yeah, we've had a number of pretty cool things coming out of the Kolmeo pipeline. So all our business model flexibility features are alive and in market. And I think we'll have a chat about how that can assist property management businesses shortly. We've got our customer gauge net promoter score surveying live in the hands of a customer at the moment. So we're just waiting for our broader mass market rollout of that feature. So that will basically allow an enterprise grade trigger point based net promoter score surveying program to be made available to everyone at a really reasonable cost, whereas it would traditionally be quite cost prohibitive to go and try and deploy that yourself. Integrations with Snug from a tenancy application and inquiry management perspective up and running. That's been really well received. Inspection Express, obviously our good friends over there with their market leading Express inspection product. Our integration with them has gone really well as well, and our customers are really happy with how that's performing. The actual features in the Kolmeo platform continue to progress and evolve. So we're really excited to unveil some maintenance management uplift features. So there's a bit of appetite out in the market we've found for people who have perhaps tried a maintenance plugin type solution to come back to a native experience. So just kind of uplifting our workflows in that regard to be, a viable option for those that don't want to go down that specialist maintenance management path.
Beautiful. Sounds like some exciting stuff. And you guys obviously very busy implementing all that. I mean, it blows my mind how all that tech stuff works. Let's dive into today's topic. And we're going to talk about some ways that businesses because can diversify their income streams because I know personally that, it is hard to make getting harder and harder for existing businesses to make profits with the expenses, wages, or the tech stack, increasing fees, adding more onto it, and also then let alone for startup businesses. How do they, come up with the funds if they don't have financial backing? How do they get started? How can they dive into the marketplace? So let's talk about that and some, income diversification options.
Yeah, so this is one that, I mean, we think about a lot at Kolmeo, but it's kind of an extension of we thought about for a really long period of time when we're in the real estate space, running property management businesses ourselves. So, for the last kind of decade before joining Kolmeo, I was involved in leadership teams at some pretty large scale property management businesses. And we're always thinking about ways to diversify income streams into the business, not just purely from a profitability perspective, but also from a defensibility perspective. So, not sure if we all recall, but I think maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, there was a real kind of underlying fear that some tech disruptors were going to come into the space and all of a sudden, a 1% management fee would be the norm and people would either have to figure out a way to conduct business at that sort of level or, they'd be gobbled up. So I guess with the passage of time, we've seen that hasn't necessarily played out, but it also doesn't mean that it won't at some point in future. So the challenge we always set ourselves as a leadership team back in my property management days was, all right, well, if we had to compete on 1% fees tomorrow, how would we do it? And what ways would we think about building up vertical or ancillary revenue streams? How could we start to diversify the way that we make income? Could we make income in ways other than traditional management fees and leasing fee type income? Like, is there a way that you could more effectively monetize all of the relationships and the contacts that you have? So these are all things that we used to ponder in real estate land and certainly take steps to go and deploy those plans and see how it worked. I think in the last big business that Scott, our CEO, and myself were involved in, we actually had a very effective ancillary revenue generation plan. So we were able to generate around $1 million a year in revenue outside of the traditional management fee and leasing fee type incomes. So that was
Do share, please.
so that was the principles that we've actually incorporated that into our Kolmeo strategic vision, which hopefully, will be valuable for all of you listeners out there. But I think the concept of ancillary revenue generation is not a new one. And as Scott often says, for a man who came into the real estate space from outside, having, done all the MBAs and all of that type of stuff, it's a pretty common external business practice that you come in and you figure out all the ancillary revenue streams and you leverage it and everyone lives happily ever after. But the devil is always in the detail, and where that becomes quite a challenge in the actual execution and distribution of all of those opportunities. So we saw, and we still continue to see, so many different ways that you could potentially provide a really helpful service to one of the people in the property management life cycle at a particular point in time, and be able to be helpful for them, useful for yourself as a business, and be able to generate money that way. Thinking back to when we were doing this in our last business, what we found was that there was no shortage of opportunities, but where the constraint was using property managers or people as a source of distribution. And that was for a few reasons. One is, like, they're busy. So from a property manager's point of view, there's enough on their plate just doing their job without also having to worry about putting the right sorts of offers under the right nose of the right customer at the right moment in time, and being able to kind of pitch that perfectly. So it becomes a frustration from a property manager's point of view if they feel like they are becoming a distribution channel for all of these types of service offerings that need to be made because they've got enough on their plate. But also, one of Scott's learnings in finance was that he found in his time in the banking industry that if the right offer was put to the right person at the right moment in time digitally, that it was actually 3 times more successful than relying on a person to be able to sell that service. So the whole concept of our services marketplace is a combination of all of those learnings and several new things. But it's about providing access to large scale negotiation power for things like utilities connections and those sorts of things. So the deal that we have with our ancillary provider is actually a better deal than we had at our last business when we were negotiating with, 23,000 properties as a point of leverage. And the way our revenue share model basically works is that we split revenue with our agency customers. So we kind of all win. We're aligned on that. So if we can bring to the table a really generous offer and share the revenue with you, then most businesses, most of the time, are still getting a better outcome than what they would get if they went and tried to negotiate that themselves.
So this is
So
something you've already got set up in Kolmeo. Sorry, just to clarify this,
yeah.
or this is something that's coming in at the moment.
Well, it's a journey. It's not a destination. So
Yep.
yeah, we've taken our first steps down this one. I mean, the common one, that the most common ancillary revenue generation opportunity in property management is generally always the utilities and the connections. And that certainly remains unchanged, but that's just one of many things that we will do. And in fact, we're kind of moving 2/3 of our development resources into this space over the next 12 months to make sure we can really maximize that. Because going back to our learnings in our last business, what we found is the first thing you do is pretty successful. The second thing you do tends to be quite successful as well. But then by the time you start looking at the third, the fourth, the fifth, then the uptake rate and the effectiveness really start to kind of fall off a cliff. And that's not because there's not value in the offering. It's just the constraint of using people as a distribution channel. So this is where our whole services marketplace vision came about, was basically how do we digitize all of these for maximum effectiveness? And that not only helps to save the property manager time because they can just focus on their actual job and doing it well and not having to be a pseudo salesperson, but also it maximizes the uptake of those services, which basically means that you're maximizing the effectiveness of the revenue generation. So there's many, 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 many different ways that we see the opportunity to provide value for the customer base and be able to generate a small amount of money in return. That, over really large volumes, and share that back with agency customers is a key part of our strategic vision. And yeah, excited to be taking those steps now.
That is amazing. Yeah, I totally think that that's a really a great pathway to be taking people and businesses down. I mean, we do have connection companies like I use Connect Now, for example. But, for me, utilizing some of those services, I forget to log in and download my
Yeah,
cards with and then they expire, all my points expire, or,
exactly.
one little glitch in your software and the connections are not going through. And, I, as a business owner, have to constantly be across that. And I actually just realized that just recently that my CRM was not connected. So my sales leads were not getting, buyers, sellers were not getting fed through to the connection service. So there's a lot of moving parts. So if that was streamlined, then obviously there's opportunities for more income to be coming into businesses as well. And I guess for me as well, I've tried over the years to have referral relationships with, smoke alarm companies and plumbers and, pest control people. And so is that something that's going to be built into your platform as well, like generic suppliers in different locations, or just more the bigger players in the marketplace? If you are anything like me, you think you know your rent roll numbers. Well, I thought I did until I had a rent roll health check, and I was quite literally shocked. The money I was leaving on the table was astounding, and this is not something that I'm proud to admit. There were missed management fees, let fees, advertising, and lease renewal fees not being charged, and properties even without bonds. And all of this was happening despite monthly audits being conducted in my business. So how did I uncover all these gaps in my valuable income? Well, I had a rent roll due diligence from my good friend Tazi, aka the Rent Roll Queen and founder of the Tazi Way, a specialist in rent roll due diligence, business valuation, and management rights. The Tazi Way is the innovative force driving the real estate industry. With 25 years of business and real estate acumen, they find gaps and risks in your agency to find undiscovered value. If you'd like to book your business in for a rent roll due diligence, head to the link in the show notes and mention That Property Mum for a 10% discount. If you're ready to be a super organised, focused and productive property manager, buckle up, because Kolmeo is about to revolutionise the way that you work. Kolmeo is the driving force behind property management excellence in residential real estate. Now picture this, a comprehensive end-to-end system designed to be the beating heart of your property management tasks, manage your properties, owners and tenants, and handle payments, inspections, and even marketing listings without leaving the platform. Kolmeo is designed to be an all-in-one solution to all your property management needs. And here's the game changer. Kolmeo isn't just software. It's been awarded the most innovative prop tech scale up in 2023. Yes, you heard it right. Kolmeo has been recognised for their groundbreaking approach to property management software. How good is that? So property managers, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, dive into the future of property management with Kolmeo. You can book in a demo with the team today and go in their weekly draw for a Prezi gift card worth $100. All you need to do is to head to the link kolmeo.com/thatpropertymum, and Kolmeo is Kolmeo.
I think we will learn a lot as we go around the journey, and I guess there will be ultimately some geographic constraints, because I think the gold standard from a platform's perspective is that you want to manage as few of these relationships with as broad a coverage as possible. But the reality says that in different pockets and different areas, then the need to have different suppliers doing the same thing is going to increase, and we need to provide that in our service offering to be making sure that we can offer the types of services that are going to be helpful, not just for agents, but owners and tenants, wherever our customer base is. So we start with kind of the large scale enterprise type relationships, because they're kind of easy to get off the ground and start getting some momentum and coverage. But the sky's the limit in terms of how far we go with services in this space. Like it's a core part of our overall strategic vision. So it's a journey that we will put just as much time and effort and focus into as the actual platform itself. So we know how lucrative this can be when it's done, fairly well, but still in a fairly constrained way, because we've done it, I guess, in what I would consider a manual sort of sense in our prior businesses. So the opportunity there is huge, and there will be a bit of test and learn around getting the right types of trigger points in the right customer journeys to maximize effectiveness. But it's also a lot more straightforward to do that with tech and be able to collect really meaningful data so that you can make better decisions about when you offer certain things at certain times, because trying to manage that through actual people as a source of distribution is also really challenging, not just from the resource and the cost perspective, but the objectiveness of the feedback that you get back in return, which then informs the decisions you make about what gets offered, when it gets offered, and so forth. So yeah, the upside of doing that from a technological perspective is that, hopefully we can maximize the uptake and minimize any manual effort. The best case scenario from a customer's point of view is they don't even know it's there, and they just get a check at the end of the month and go, wow, cool, that was easy. I literally didn't have to do anything. So that's the dream. That's what kind of gets us out of bed every day. So yeah, we look forward to the challenges of that path.
Yeah, I think that's really important. If agencies or business owners don't have to do a lot and get those rewards at the end of the day, and it is one small part, I think, in that journey to having different income streams. If a major disruptor comes back into the industry, which thankfully the last one that came in didn't work out, that was offering the crazy low fees. But that's not to say that there's somebody's learnt from that lesson and
Yeah,
they're
that's
working
right.
on something amazing behind. I mean, if you could, cast your vision 5 year, wouldn't it be great to have that crystal ball and cast it 5, 10 years? I mean, I think, AI is going to be a huge, it's going to play a part in disrupting how we do things. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But what that's going to look like, again, we don't have that crystal ball. But, I guess you guys in the tech space, myself personally, I'm always looking that future. Where are we heading? What's needed? How do I fill that gap that's going to be coming in 5 years' time? So yeah, so I think you guys are definitely obviously making that diversification of income a much easier journey for everybody. But what about that? So that's one aspect, I guess, for business owners is having an additional income stream.
Yeah.
But then there's the other aspect of cutting some costs. Subscription fees, I think I just worked out, I think it costs me about 2 grand a month in subscription fees right now. That's conservatively. I probably haven't added all of them in there. That's conservatively, definitely conservatively. So for a startup business, that's a lot of money. So I love how you guys have come up with a solution for that and I'm not sure if it's already out, or it's coming in, where I guess the way you described it was that co-op type thinking, where some businesses can come together and share some of the expenses.
Yeah, so this is kind of an extension, ironically, of things that we had to build to cater to the customer base that we have. So we originally came to market as a platform that is fortunate enough to work with some really large scale businesses and often they're national. And as we know in property management, all trust accounting and tenancy law is a state-based thing. So in a multinational business, you generally have one overarching entity, then you have several state-based localized businesses, and then you might have multiple offices attached to that. So that is our kind of underlying architecture of a three-layer of company, agency, and office. What we realized, if we actually just took that structure, which we already had and we'd already built for our incumbent customers, and added some really supercharged roles and permissions engine, then we actually had a business model that fit a lot of other different and more innovative business structures. So it's loosely called business model flexibility from a Kolmeo perspective. But the beauty of that is that we actually can allow individual agency branding right down to an office-based level. So that means that there's a whole raft of opportunities that this opens up for businesses. You can become a business that offers property management as a service to other businesses. You could be a multi-brand business, either because you've bought a number of businesses and just want to continue to run them as multi-brands, or perhaps you want to look at like the Qantas high fee, Jetstar low fee tech powered sort of business offering and then try and move people from one to the other. If you are an existing business that has high performing or executive PM type scenarios, then you might want to set them up as their own little individual office. If you want to be able to have like a revenue share and equity share arrangement, there's opportunity there to be a business that provides operational support for other businesses. And I think that's probably where we start to dip into this whole concept around cost saving. So you could be an overarching umbrella type entity that provides all the back end support for individual micro sole trader people that go out and provide the service. And in that way, you're helping to kind of minimize their upfront costs and their setup costs and their subscription costs. And you're also providing your IP and expertise to them in an operational sense so that they can just focus on going out and doing the best job as the high value service provider for the customer. I think there's probably another variation of this where lots of people in my social circle all run, small scale property management businesses, but they're all incurring the fixed costs and subscriptions attached to that. So given that we're really able to tightly lock down who can go where, see what, and do which things under our structure, you could even have a scenario where if you ran a business and a couple of your best mates ran a business, you can actually all get together under our structure and run an individually branded service offering, have complete privacy between all of your individual data sets, but just do all that from one Kolmeo setup and one login, and then be able to share not only the subscription costs associated with Kolmeo, but any of your other integrated partners that you might want to work with, like, Snug for tenancy applications and inquiry management, Inspection Express if you want, that high-end inspection experience. Bearing in mind, we also have our native inspection app as well. So that's just kind of ways that we can start to bring down that cost of entry for people who want to get out there and have a go and start their own businesses. But there's a lot of different ways that we can slice and dice this. We even work with quite a high-profile franchise in Sydney who provide a corporate support offering to help their businesses. So how that basically works is if a business starts off and wants to grow a rent roll, obviously they don't yet have enough properties to justify a full-time person. So the corporate office actually manage all of the properties out of that office for them. And then once it gets to a size where it substantiates a full-time person, they can move in their own property manager. Then corporate can step back. But then they also have the flexibility to offer like PM locum services. So if someone is sick or away, they can just slide right in, do the services for a period of time, and then drop right out. So basically, all of this is available from a single sign-on and a single task management queue. And basically, all the roles and permissions then do the rest. And they can govern who can go where, who can see what, who can do what. And you can have that kind of as broad or as tightly coupled as you need to, depending on the circumstance.
That sounds like music to my ears. And I bet you it sounds like music to a lot of people listening's ears as well. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of businesses, it would be great if we could all have that locum service like the other agency. But yeah, you guys have sort of really moved into catering for the top end of the spectrum right down to the startup businesses with your solutions now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of born of necessity. I mean, we entered a market that is always already dominated by, multinational venture capital, billion-dollar tech funds. And when you enter that sort of duopoly or triopoly, is that the word for three-player monopoly? I don't know. But what we can agree on is there's pretty entrenched incumbents in the space. So as a new player into this space, you have to understand where the opportunities are to innovate and really exploit those areas, because just coming into the market and being a slightly or incrementally better version of what's already available going to tickle people's fancy. The last thing we need is a slightly better version of what everything already does. So we had to come in with a pretty clear identity and also an understanding of where we could really go and be better and be noticeably better than things that are available in market at the moment. And yeah, you've kind of nailed it. We're fortunate to work with the large and ultra large businesses. We have all of our business model flexibility features, which help businesses with a whole range of innovative business structures or complex business structures. Like if they've got shared ownerships and all that type of stuff, we can manage all of that. One of the things that doesn't often get talked about because it is quite a niche is businesses on borders. So if you're in Tweed Heads and Coolangatta or Queanbeyan and Canberra or Albury and Wodonga, those four people, 2 sets of everything, 2 sets of templates, 2 sets of trust accounts, 2 sets of databases, everything. We can also solve that pain for them by just having a single sign-on, single task queue, having individual incorporated templates for all of those things, the state-based need. So we kind of do that. And then our view of the world has always been to be quite a broad-based platform. So the concept of having a core operating system with a lot of integrated solutions has been pretty popular in the market for quite a while now. And for some businesses that works brilliantly. And if it does work brilliantly, then, they should totally continue to do it. But we're also noticing there's a bit of an appetite out there for people who want a simpler existence, both from a user perspective and a cost control perspective, to just have a broader base in their primary operating system. And so Kolmeo is really strong in that space because we have a lot of inbuilt features that people would normally use an add-on for. So we kind of provide that more simplified existence for them as well.
Amazing. You just gave a great lesson there as well in that innovative thinking. A lot of people who are wanting to start up their own property management businesses or maybe in competitive marketplaces, you can't just be the same as every other property manager in there. You've got to innovate.
Yeah.
You've got to think outside the square. And maybe it is the tech stack or the software platform that you use could be one of the ways that you can innovate. And it certainly sounds like with the work that you guys are doing at Kolmeo that, diversifying income streams, cutting costs is definitely going to be something that businesses are going to need to look at moving forward. So how can somebody who would love to learn more and get maybe a demo about some of these features, if somebody's sitting thinking, oh my God, I need to know more, what's the best way that they can reach out and connect with you guys?
Well, you can talk to me. So I'm on all the socials. You'll find me floating around on Facebook or Instagram. Jump on the website, all our contact details are there. But you can just email hello@kolmeo.com and that will come through to us. You can hit us on any of the social channels as well. So we've got a couple of our senior business development folks who'd love to have a chat to anyone that wants to know more. But yeah, importantly, it's a good idea for people to understand what problems or challenges they have in business and then go and seek the solutions to that. We obviously very strong in a range of different ways, but ultimately we don't want to force a solution on someone who doesn't have a problem that we solve. So that's just kind of a broad piece of advice I give to all people when they're in the tech space, because it is crowded with shiny things and pictures. And, I know from my own experience being in the industry that so often I'm getting pitched solutions, but people don't even know if I actually have that problem. So we're happy to talk to anyone about what we can do and how we can work really collaboratively with them. And yeah, we'll kind of help unpack what's going on in their business right now, any challenges they have with their existing tech stack, and then talk to how we could potentially add value in that space.
Yeah, I think you guys solve a lot of problems that are out there in the industry at the moment. So thank you for the work that you guys do. I'll share all the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of the Property Management Podcast.
Thank you, Kylie, for having me. It's been great to be here.
Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.